There's a story that is trending on Twitter right now, and I suppose that's somewhat of a flutter in the political media space on Ron Johnson, Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. The belief, the word on the street is that Ron Johnson is a racist. Now, what are they using to make Ron Johnson a racist? Now, it's possible that Ron Johnson is a racist. Who knows? It's possible. It's very possible that could be the case. But they're arguing something slightly different, that he's a racist and that the radio show that he spoke on proves it so. They're trying to say that the statement that he made was belligerently racist. And they have been calling him that apparently for the last several days, so much so he's gotten on to push back against it. Now, again, he's in the Republican Party. The identity thing is one of the Democrats, and that, I would argue, started an opposition in the sense of back in the civil rights stuff. But, you can always take a step back beyond that point and end up in this kind of fuckery. But right now, from the standpoint of identity politics, Democrats are the ones that cater and embellish identity. Republicans are not, with the exception of the white identity, which is why they're often susceptible to these type of attacks. In this case, they're saying that the conversation that Ron Johnson had proves that he was racist. And they've been screaming that on Twitter for the last God knows how long, so much so that it's trending. I want to talk about this because I listened to the audio show or the radio show where they're trying to say, proves this. And I heard the wording that he said that they're trying to say proves this. But if I am being bluntly honest in advance, and maybe some people are going to greatly disagree with me on this, I don't see how this statement was racist. Whether Ron Johnson is racist or not is a secondary question. This statement is not the damning evidence that people are making it out to be, and I don't necessarily see it. Now, if you give me a legislative record, if you give me something that he said with that you can kind of show how the legislative record adversely affect people of color. But if you're going to go there, you're going to have to go through varying shades within the context of your entire political space with the Uniparty shafting workers often. This interview, and it pains me to even say it, but I've been seeing it so much that I had to listen to the interview. Then after hearing it, no, I don't think this interview proves definitively that Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin is racist. What it does prove, if they're looking for any other topic as opposed to explaining why people aren't getting their $15 an hour minimum wage in the way that Joe Biden said it, this stuff is theatrics. I don't care about the claims of whether or not Ron Johnson is racist and the whispers that's on the bathroom wall. I don't care. What I care about is there are 20, 30, 40 million Americans that are not going to get their pay raise, that are not going to get that $15 an hour that would have doubled. They are not going to get that benefit, despite the fact that the United States government under Joe Biden said he was going to do it. He called it a starvation wage. And now they're moving on with chatter, bathroom wall scribbles, that this guy's a racist. And that this conversation that I'm about to let you hear proves it so. I have no love for Ron Johnson. None. By the same token, where's the $15 an hour? And when that $15 an hour is not on the marquee, when that is being shoved to the side, and this nonsense get popped up by Democrats, yes, I will talk about it. Because I wanted to make the point that it's theater. It's crap in comparison to the real physical matter reality things and the constraints that we deal with as human beings, and the way that government is there explicitly for the purpose of alleviating those conditions. That's not what happened. He didn't give the $15 an hour minimum wage. And for whatever the pot of benefits that's in that bill, the $15 an hour was major. They want to talk about Ron Johnson being racist. I don't give a shit about whether or not Ron Johnson is racist. Nor do I believe that this radio show deems it such. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. Look, the identity stuff bothers me because oftentimes it's identity in lieu of getting stuff accomplished. So it's Hey, I know you black people need universal health care, but we're going to give you Kamala Harris instead, and you should be happy for Kamala Harris. But we need health care. Why should I care about the Kamala Harris? Same thing with the theatrics. Hey, we saw this written on the bathroom wall that this guy was a racist. I know you care about the $15 an hour, but do you want to talk about the guy being racist? No, I don't give a shit about the guy being racist. I care about the $15 an hour. Wait, it doesn't bother you at all? Are you being a little racist by not saying that this guy is racist for this comment? I don't give a shit what you think about me. What I care about is the $15 an hour, and whether or not Ron Johnson is racist or not is not entirely demonstrated to me by this audio. I'll let you hear for yourself. You tell me. I'm making a point that I am not turning the page. I would be a bitter ender on the $15 an hour for the gravity of it. And the theatrics and everything else that these guys are throwing into play always include races, are typically reactionary, and the people who are trying to get some kind of political advantage for it are not even, I would wager, entirely in on it bothering them all that much. It's political chow or chum. And again, it pains me to have to point this out for somebody like Ron Johnson, but I do this because they are putting out chum as opposed to dealing with real concern. Where is the $15 an hour that the President of the United States promised that he was going to get passed? How is the President of the United States going to get past the $15 an hour that he promised the public? And why is he not currently talking about it? Why didn't he get Joe Manchin online? Why didn't he get rid of the filibuster? Why didn't he get rid of the parliamentarian that was blocking his agenda? Why? All of these whys, and culminates to basically he never meant it. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about Ron Johnson being racist. Let's play the clip because I got to be honest, I don't hear it. But let's hear Johnson in his own words.
Criticized because I made the comment that on January 6th I never felt threatened, because I didn't, and mainly because I knew that even though those thousands of people there were marching to the Capitol were trying to pressure people like me to vote the way they wanted me to vote, I knew those were people that love this country, that truly respect law enforcement, would never do anything to break a law. And so I wasn't concerned. Now, had the tables been turned, and Joe, this get me in trouble, had the tables been turned and President Trump won the election, and those were tens of thousands of Black Lives Matter and Antifa protesters, I might have been a little concerned.
Wow. That's a big statement, but it's a true statement. We see the recent history.
Now, the point that they're making here is, well, wait a minute. If it was a black mob, you would have been bothered, but a white mob, you're not bothered. And because you're okay with the white mob, but you're not okay with the black mob, that means you are racist, sir. And that's basically the line of attack. It's not any more with more depth than that. Very straightforward, very shallow. You are okay with a white mob. You're not okay with a black mob. That feels like if I was a cameraman in a gay porn, and at some point, let's say one of the actors gets sick, one of the actors are missing, and they look around the room and say, hey, buddy, you want to make some extra money? And you make the point to them that you're not gay and that you're not necessarily into the business of sleeping with men. And they say, what are you, racist or something? What are you, a bigot? You're a homophobe? And you try to make the point that, look, just because I don't want to fuck men doesn't make me a homophobe. And they will call you. They would say you're a homophobe. They would say you're a homophobe. You're anti-gay. You're racist, etc., etc., etc. All sorts of names will come out in that situation. And you're the cameraman who's sitting there just trying to do your job. All of a sudden, he gets hit with all of this other stuff because you're not necessarily on board for something that is directly personal and related specifically to you, meaning your sexuality and whether or not and how you want to express that. It's not for somebody to call you homophobe because you don't necessarily want to have sex with somebody who's gay. I'm making the point that the same thing is slightly true here. Johnson is basically saying if it was a white mob, I would have been okay. Why didn't he feel like he was in danger? I mean, right here for one, this is that loving mob, if I could find it. I thought I had saved it. But that loving mob that he is talking about, there are two things that are acting here. One is the politics of lying, where Johnson wants to be able to say, hey, it wasn't as bad as they're trying to make it out to be. No, it was that bad. Look at the law enforcement that Johnson is saying that Trump supporters care so much about fighting in the streets with their bare hands. The police are surrounded. The police are fighting with their fists. The police are overwhelmed. Multiple, like hundreds, go to the hospital. I think they've arrested well over 400 people. I think that number is up to 900, but I'm not sure. I know I'm safer with 300 or 400. And so he's like, I felt okay with that. I didn't feel all that safe, that bothered. Well, he might have not felt bothered by that. Either he is lying, in which case he did feel bothered. He just doesn't want to own up to it because he wanted to either stand by Trump or stand on some kind of political disposition. So there's the potential that he is lying, meaning in one part, the clip doesn't prove he's racist because he might not even be serious in the clip. But more importantly, beyond the point of him being whether he's honest or not, even if he is honest, why is he not bothered? Is it possible that from his standpoint, those people are basically him? And I don't mean this from a racial standpoint. I mean this from an ideological standpoint. In the same way that those people raided the Capitol because they want to get these guys to quote unquote vote the right way, he might have already been voting the right way. He might have already been on the side. So for him, no, I'm not intimidated by the crowd that's coming in and raiding Congress because I am already on the side of that crowd. I'm making a point that it's a point of view argument. From the point of view of the individual, we are not a United States. We've never been a United States. The perspective of the slave, of the black person, of the Hispanic person, of the mom, will have some differences than some of the other people that are in the political space. They're going to be specific and subjective differences, some idiosyncrasies in regards to our politics that a group, a crowd may radiate. I'm saying that is it possible that he looks at this crowd and the distinguishing characteristic is not that they are white, which is the reason why he's okay. If these guys were a bunch of truckers that were punching politicians in the face, the whiteness wouldn't necessarily be on board for him. Yes, the overwhelming majority of the people that raided the Capitol were white. But if I make a claim, the thing that he's accruing around, because look, the majority of the people who were voting for the Republican Party in large measure were white. So that's not necessarily shocking to me that a mob of Republicans who are typically white anyway, show up at the Capitol. I'm making the point that is it possible, by any degree that's possible, that what he's talking about here is very specific to the notion that I am already on their side. If a bunch of chess players raid the Capitol and I'm mulling around the Capitol, am I bothered by that? If a bunch of people who are for UFO secrecy raid the Capitol and I'm moseying around the Capitol area, am I bothered by that? Probably not. I may not necessarily like the motives, but am I going to feel threatened if I'm in my own habitat? Probably not. Does this mean that Ron Johnson is not gay? No. I mean, not racist. No. Does it prove that he is? No. That's the only point I'm trying to make. That this chum is being thrown off for political effect to distract. If Ron Johnson, and this was a Black Lives Matter protest, and he was moseying around the Capitol gates, Ron Johnson will probably look at what's taking place and say, I have no political, racial, any sort of identification with the people who are coming here right now for this protest that is Black Lives Matter. And by definition, he almost will have a higher degree of apprehension because of such. Now, you can boil that down and say this is all about race, but this is not entirely all about race. Johnson, I would wager to you, would be very uncomfortable with some white groups that are showing up at the protests, if indeed it was against his political designation. And that's the kind of point that I'm trying to make here. It's not entirely and specifically about race in the way that people are talking about it. There are plausible rationales for why Johnson may take this position that has nothing to do with race. But that's kind of the point. None of that matters. These are political enemies in the way that Democrats frame it. And as such, you're not necessarily going to go out on a limb protecting a political enemy, especially if there's even an incremental morsel of something that tries to blow it up into something else. And the people who are fans of Democrats, the people who are on board for Democrats, will just immediately go run with it. Why would you put that much energy into it? All of these people who you accrue around and who you look at and watch on television and everything else is saying this guy is racist. You have articles, journals, periodicals written, this guy is racist. And again, whether he is or not, I have no idea in the grand scheme of the things. I haven't paid a huge amount of attention to Ron Johnson. But using this document as the source of them saying that, I'm saying is lacking. That word shouldn't be undermined. And the word is undermined every time the word is used in a way that it shouldn't be. And no, I'm not going to give Democrats who have this level, this praising and this admiration, not admiration, almost like a cultish, reactionary position on issues of race and identity. And in many respects, those issues of race and identity are used to basically ignore real world, environmental, or for that matter, economic, material interests. It's a problem. And my next video is going to be on something similar to that, where the shiny object is basically used to ignore real policy concerns of the poor and the middle class. Like, this is not a rah-rah for Ron Johnson, by the way. Like, share, subscribe. And by the way, make sure you're subscribed, guys. Make sure you hit the button and the notification bell, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys in a few. Thanks.